Let's move on to main topic number 3. And our third main topic today gets sent in to us by Geeky Gator, who writes, since Uncharted is clearly not making the December 2020 release date, that makes Dune the only big-budget action sci-fi movie during the holiday period where movies like Aquaman, Star Wars, and Middle-earth movies have succeeded greatly. Do you think Dune is set to dominate the holiday season like these movies did? All right. Thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And for those of you who may have missed out some of this news, of course, Uncharted is probably getting bumped because they've just lost another director. And this time they lost a director who I think would have done great things with that property in Travis Knight. He directed Kubo and the Two Strings, and then he did a fabulous job resurrecting the Transformers franchise with his great performance as far as being a director goes on Bumblebee. And I thought he was going to do a great job with that movie. He's now left the project, so clearly this project is going to get bumped off that date. That leaves Dune standing as the movie to beat. The question, though, is it? Is Dune poised to become a huge blockbuster hit like a Star Wars, like a Lord of the Rings, like an Aquaman did, making $1 billion coming out in a December date? I want to caution on two things. The first caution that I want to throw out there is this. Dune is not, with the general audience, not a massively popular IP. It is massively popular in certain circles, but it is not a massive popular IP. And, you know, when you look at some of Denis Villeneuve's other work, just for instance, look at the most recent job he did with Blade Runner 2049. He did a great job on that movie, but it wasn't an IP that a lot of people were chomping at the bit to run out to see, and it didn't perform well. It lost the studio money, which is unfortunate because the movie ended up actually being great. I actually like it more than the original, but that's just me. So I would say I would be a little bit hesitant about calling it a big runaway, like $1 billion blockbuster, like a Star Wars or like an Aquaman or something like that, for that reason. The other reason, though, is this. Even though Uncharted isn't going to be there getting in its way, it's not like the holiday season that year in that December is completely empty. There are some films that could pose a problem to the box office performance of Dune. For example, I believe on the same day is Coming to America 2. Totally different genre, I get it, but there are a lot of people kind of excited about Eddie Murphy coming back to Coming to America 2, especially after My Name is Dolomite. And especially after his performance on Saturday Night Live, which was like the highest rated Saturday Night Live in the last 4 or 5 years. Yeah. So there's that. Also, you've got Steven Spielberg's West Side Story. Now, I don't believe West Side Story is going to be a huge blockbuster. That being said, it is going to draw a certain audience. The Croods too. Look, I didn't even like the first Croods movie, but it made a lot of money. The sequel as an animated film could do some damage. The Tom and Jerry film, a movie I don't have a lot of interest in, but I think there's going to be a number of people who do. You've got the new Tom Hanks film, News of the World. That's going to get some attention. You got the new Chris Pratt movie, The Tomorrow War. That's going to get some attention. You got the Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, The Last Duel period epic. So that's going to get some attention. Now, I'm not saying none of these are going to be billion-dollar films, but it's not like Dune is sitting there in December facing absolutely no competition whatsoever. Rob, you take a look at this scenario. It looks like Uncharted isn't going to be released in that December. Given that, how big do you think Dune can be, and does it actually stand to do better now that Uncharted isn't there?
Well, I think you pretty much...
I love when you start your answer with a sigh.
I think you pretty much summed up. Here's the thing about Dune. I hate to use the word elitist, but it's not like Dune. Dune is very heady, very intellectual stuff on one level. Now, on another level, yes, it has a sweeping, epic, Game of Thrones-esque palace intrigue across the Landsrat, across the galaxy, element to it, but it is not Star Wars. And if you look at Denis Villeneuve's work, and I'm a huge fan of his, he's one of my favorite filmmakers working today. Whether you go from Prisoners to Arrival to Blade Runner 2049, he is a very sophisticated and a very, I would say, adult filmmaker. That is not. He's not. I don't think he's a 4-quadrant filmmaker. And while they might want Dune to appeal to kids. I mean, after all, they made Dune action figures back in 1984 when Lynch's movie came out. I'm like, who's going to buy these? But okay. And I think that Dune is the thinking person's science fiction movie. And it's going to be, I mean, look, maybe they'll embrace the action elements and all that. It certainly has an amazing cast, but I definitely think Dune is going to be positioned as a highbrow science fiction epic. And maybe it'll tap into the audience that Game of Thrones did, and it'll be a worldwide hit. But I don't think it's necessarily a guaranteed billion-dollar box office grosser. I think it's going to be something that is not going to appeal to everyone. It certainly is not. Everyone just thinks, well, it's science fiction, so it's going to be embraced by everyone. I don't think that's true. And anyone who's read the book and knows the story knows that's not true. However, if it's approached more along the lines, it's really a tonal issue. It could be more of a Lord of the Rings-esque type thing. I mean, Lord of the Rings, while it had the hobbits, and sure, there's easy ways to get into that, it really appealed to everyone. And yet it had incredible, fantastical elements, but it had a real human story behind it, and a real hobbit story, and a real orc story too, and elves and dwarves. But I think that Dune, it's a question mark for me because we haven't seen anything from it. So I don't know the tone that they're going for.
Yeah. And here's the thing too. Now, some people might be screaming at their computer monitors right now saying, but the movie's going to be great, so it's going to do well. Well, again, we go back to Blade Runner 2049.
Yes.
That movie was great, but it failed to connect with people from a marketing point of view. It faced that hurdle. And I've gone on and on, Rob, before about just how brutal of a job that they did with the marketing of Blade Runner 2049. They never let the audience even know what it was about. People felt disconnected from it. And you raised an excellent point, Rob, about the fact that Dune can be looked at as a very heady kind of concept thing. And if they approach the marketing to Dune like they did for Blade Runner 2049, I'll tell you right now, it won't matter how good Dune is. It won't matter how good it is. If they make the audience feel like they're disconnected from whatever it is they're marketing, they're not going to go out and see it. So hopefully they've learned some lessons from what happened with Blade Runner 2049, and they understand they've got to find a way to connect with the audience, to motivate them to get out and see this thing. Otherwise, because Denis Villeneuve's directing it, I have no doubt of what the quality is going to be.
Right.
I have zero, right? Like that's not the question for us right now. It's about, can they motivate the audience to go out? And I think you raised the most awesome point here about the fact that conceptually Dune can be seen as a little high shelf.
But on the other hand, I've been surprised. We have been getting an embarrassment of riches as far as fantasy sci-fi goes. The Expanse is a very, I don't know what the ratings are, but it's also a very sophisticated piece of science fiction that's literary based. And I think that maybe I'm underestimating a little the audience because, John, we're seeing such great, whether it's Carnival Row, whether it's Dark Crystal Age of Resistance, a puppet show that's incredibly sophisticated. That's true. The Expanse is sophisticated. So I think our audiences are becoming sophisticated when it comes to literary-based science fiction, fantasy, and horror. I mean, I'm looking forward. HBO's got the Stephen King adaptation, The Outsider, which is a book I read, and it looks really highbrow, high-minded. It doesn't look like schlock. So it's exciting to see audiences embracing this amazing stuff that we're getting. I only hope it translates to the kind of box office they're going to need to justify more Dune movies going forward.
Well, I hope you're right. And the question here is, guys, what do you think? Do you think Dune is now poised to be a huge blockbuster hit in December now that Uncharted isn't there? Do you think now there are still some hurdles in its way? What are you thinking about it? Jump down into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right.